Om Shri Sai Ram. Welcome to this episode of His Story Through the Eyes of His Boys. Offering my most humble salutations at the lotus feet of Bhagwan, we begin this program with our prayer. And as always, please join me in the prayer. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Om Shri Sai Ram. As always, I feel grateful and blessed to continue this journey of Divine Saga week after week. It is Bhagwan's grace that we are able to hear the beautiful insights and different facets of our Divine Master, how he has chiseled and nurtured each one of us. And this privileged story of Bhagwan, which we have been hearing from 1962, continues till date. Today we are privileged to have another brother who, even though he is a fourth generation devotee of Bhagwan, but came to Bhagwan in 2002 to do his MBA program. And then the glue, I think, was too strong. He continued after MBA, he did his PhD, I should say MPhil, PhD, and then a postdoctoral. In that process, there is so much observation, learning, and grace. And without further ado, let me welcome Brother Shashank Shah. Sai Ram, Brother Shashank.
Sai Ram, Brother Abhimanyu. So nice to be on this special series.
Thank you so much and welcome. Brother Shashank is he's an author, if I may put it in a very simple manner. He has authored, I would say, a couple of good books, 3 professional books, which have gone to become bestsellers. He is also having a hat of consultant editor in Business India Group, and he is also a Sai Fellow 2017 from Harvard University. So, Shashank, what is this pun about Sai 17? Let's start with that.
So SAI, SAI, the acronym stands for the South Asia Institute. So I had been a fellow at the Harvard University South Asia Institute.
And so even though Bhagwan sent you to Harvard, he kept you reminded that, hey, that is not Harvard, that is me sending you there.
No, he came along because that fellow is me and Sai. So we were both together there.
Excellent, excellent. So Shashank, it is so nice to have you. And as I was looking at your profile and I realized 4 generations. So I'm sure everybody listener would be curious to know how this journey started from the day one. Who was the first person to get hooked on with Bhagwan?
Yeah, so as you had mentioned in the introduction, that was 4 generations back. So my great-grandparents, my great-grandmother specifically, was one of the first devotees on my maternal side. So I came to know of Swami from several sources. One of her brothers had shared his excitement about Swami and his miracles and his grandeur after a visit to Chennai. And there were some neighbors who had shared about their experiences. This is all in Mumbai, the erstwhile Bombay. And there were a series of family circumstances which kind of inspired them to visit Puttaparthi and see Swami firsthand. and experience him, and at least verify, as they say, that what they have heard is actually what is the actual experience there. So it was in the early, it was in 1965, 66, when my great grandmother, Mrs. Kanta Gauri Shah, she visited Puttaparthi. And as are all the stories, yeah, that's the matriarch in the center is my great grandmother
Okay.
with that Gujarati style sari, and next to that is my great grandfather, Mr. Natwar Lal Shah.
So
So
she was a reason for getting into Bhagwan's fold.
yes, yes. For our family,
Okay.
the sole credit in hereditary terms goes to her.
Excellent.
In
Hmm.
fact, as recently as 2004, Swami mentioned about her in one of our interviews, and remembered her almost 29 years after she had passed away. So yeah, that connect stays.
That's sweet. Hmm.
So yeah, so in those years it was the same story. They to go to Puttaparthi via the bullock carts, they to cross the Chitravati, which used to be in Spate, and even she had shared how Swami would be waiting on the other side for devotees to come and kind of be the host. And the facilities were simple. They had in the early visits they had to stay below the trees, and very simple arrangements. But the advantage was that because there were no barriers between devotees and Swami, the access to Swami also was without any barriers. So Swami would visit almost every tree where the devotees were staying and bless them. In later visits, Swami would, I mean, they used to get a room to stay because the facilities improved. Then Swami used to go almost to any room on any day and just bless the devotees. And they had to be ready even with some of naivedyam to be offered to Swami, because if Swami comes, you can't let him go without accepting some naivedyam. And
Something.
because you don't know which day he is going to come, so every food you prepare is with the thought that this is naivedyam. So that's like a habit for life, that every food you prepare, you don't know which one Swami is going to accept. And he always used to
Good.
say, she used, yeah, so she used to say one thing. She used to say, Swami used to always tell them in every visit, take Pad Namaskar now, take Pad Namaskar now, as many Pad Namaskars. You won't have this opportunity in the future. Things will change very drastically. So almost 5 years between 66 and 71. She used to visit Puttaparthi. And then, of course, Swami started coming to Mumbai. 66, 67, Dharmakshetra foundation stone was laid, November 67. And 68 May, Dharmakshetra was inaugurated. So Swami's visits to Mumbai were very frequent. So
Frequent, yeah.
yeah, so he was visiting Mumbai very regularly. In 65, 66, there are images of Swami giving darshan in the Vallabhbhai Patel Stadium in Worli, and 50,000 people gathered to see this phenomena, who speaks in a language not familiar with people from Bombay, who is 5 foot 3 inch, and who is very mysterious, and yet has the magnetic power to attract 50,000 people in the financial capital of a newly independent country. That's the phenomena we're talking about. So most of our interactions were there till 71, when she was diagnosed with cancer. And cancer in those years was almost a very
Fatal.
yeah, life-threatening disease, and it was diagnosed also much at an advanced stage. So she couldn't go to Puttaparthi at all. In fact, not even much to Mumbai, because she couldn't sit for long hours, etc. Until 1975 January. That's when Swami had come to Mumbai for inauguration of one of the institutions, some special college, technical college or something. Swami was invited to inaugurate. And the first thing Swami did was, when he came out of the flight and was in the car, he told one of the elder devotees, how is Mrs. Shah? So he said, Swami, she is bedridden, and you know her situation. So Swami said, tell her I will come to see her this evening. So it was on top of his agenda when he came in that visit, January 75. And along with that instructions, tell them not to make any arrangements. I'm just coming to see her. So in a house where you have a terminally ill cancer patient, the sensitivity of a guest as to how he should be. See, in every aspect of Swami's life, if we want to draw a lesson, There is one. So he came uh, afternoon. He went straight to my great grandmother's room. She was lying on the cot. My great grandfather was there, and Swami sat on the chair next to her. And then Swami spoke to her, and then he asked her, "What do you want, Amma?" So my great grandmother said, "Swami, I know this disease is an outcome of my own karma. I have to go through it. So just give me the strength that I should be patiently and courageously be able to bear this."
So
So
sweet.
yeah, so Swami put his hand on her head, and then there was some apple pieces kept there. So he just accepted one, had a sip of water. So the hosts are happy. And then he was leaving. Swami, so she said, "Swami, I want Pad Namaskar." How will she get Pad Namaskar? She was bedridden. So then Swami said, "Okay, get a stool, footstool, a much bigger stool, a taller stool." So he got it placed next to her bed. He was sitting. He again sat down on his chair, lifted his feet, put them on the stool, and said, "Ha, ma, now you can take namaskar." So my great grandmother lying down, she put her hands on his feet,
So
and
nice.
took namaskar. 3 months later, on a Thursday, she passed away. In fact, the day she passed away, that morning, she said, "Today is Thursday. Today Swami is coming. Get the aarti ready." So everybody was wondering how will Swami come. But that later that afternoon, in the aarti time, she exited. So yeah, these are all ways
So
and ways.
beautiful. He's
Yeah,
devotee and he both are mysterious.
correct, correct.
Great.
That's right.
So how did it flow down to your grandparents then,
Yeah. So from my great grand.
and your father? Yeah,
Yeah, so no, this is all on my mother's side. So father
yeah.
came later. Yeah, so great grandfather also used to go with grandmother, great grandmother to Puttaparthi, etc. But no specific instances there. Grandmother, she was extreme. She's. By the way, my grandmother is still around. She's 1 week elder to Swami in age. So she entered 95 last year. Very hale and hearty. Stays alone in Boston. Very active
That's
in the
good.
organization with bhajan
Nice.
Swami. So she also had similarly come to know of Swami. So much before my great grandmother went to Puttaparthi, she went to see Swami in Mr. Sawant's house. She used to be extremely enamored by spiritual people. So Mr. P.K. Sawant was a minister in the government of Maharashtra, and Swami used to come and stay at his place in 65, 66, before Dharmakshetra was established. So that's where she had his first darshan. And then, of course, in Dharmakshetra and other places. But her first main experience was in early 1970, 71 or 72. When my great grandmother was in the hospital, my grandmother, she insisted that my grandmother should go to Puttaparthi, at least she should get darshan. So she went there, and they stayed for a few days. She and her cousins, they went, three, four of ladies together. And there, Swami called them for an interview. Before that, they one miracle which she saw, she shared with me. I in fact was talking to her, and she said that she was there in the sitting in the darshan line, and then she saw Swami calling one handicapped boy and his mother to the portico. And then, when the handicapped boy and the mother went to the portico, Swami told his mother, "You sit at a distance." And Swami told the boy, "Get up." So the boy was handicapped. How would he get up? And then Swami kept insisting, and that mother was getting pulled to the boy because of obvious handicap. How will. So Swami said, "No, you sit there. You don't have to move from there." And somehow, with his persistence, Swami made that boy stand up. The handicapped boy stood up. Then Swami made him walk all the way to where his mother was sitting. And it was a sight for the entire portico and all the devotees to watch. And my grandmother was flabbergasted, because that was one of her first experiences with Swami.
Exposures to that.
Yeah, in fact, she told me she saw that boy next day in the canteen with his mother, and she was closely observing him whether he's still walking. You know how our minds are, right? But after that, she got an interview with Swami. And she used to always keep thinking while traveling to work. She was a working woman, worked for almost all her life. In the bus, in the local bus while going to work, she used to think, if I get interview with Swami, I'll ask this. If I get interview with Swami, I will ask that. So that was her chance. And the moment Swami called her in the inner interview room, and he started talking to her. She broke down. She just couldn't talk. And Swami kept on saying, Amma, kya hua, kuch to bolo, and she just couldn't talk. And then after she kind of stopped crying or stopped sobbing, Swami because he couldn't say anything, so Swami on his own started answering the same questions which she had thought on the way to work in Mumbai for long years. And in the same chronology, one by one, he started giving her the answers. And she was amazed that even without asking Swami, he answered everything that she wanted to know. And then
She
Swami,
was
yeah, and then Swami wouldn't give them permission to leave for 4 or 5 days. And she was a working woman. So she was every day thinking why Swami is not allowing us to go. Because in those days, after getting an interview, you would take permission before leaving. And after 5 days, Swami allowed them to go. And when they reached Dharmavaram railway station, they came to know that for the previous 4 days, no train was allowed to stop at Dharmavaram for some administrative reasons. And if they would have come Tuesdays, they would have been stuck at Dharmavaram. So these are ways in which he kind of introduces. But a very important thing in her life I'd like to share. This is much later in 83, 84, and she was diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. She had a severe heart problem. In fact, she collapsed, and she was rushed home, and then she was admitted in the ICU, and several specialists looked her up and checked what was the problem. Jaslok Hospital, one of the eminent hospitals in Mumbai, she was treated there as well, and they said you need a bypass surgery, a major bypass surgery, some serious problem. And by then my uncles were in the US, so they said, no, we'll do the surgery in US. You come to Boston, that's where they were staying. And she said, no, first I'll get Swami's blessing. So she sent a letter to Swami with one of the senior devotees. And Swami sent some vibhuti as his blessings. So vibhuti came, she headed to, and he sent a message, tell her, don't worry, I'm with her. That's the message he sent. And she went to the US, and the doctor who was supposed to be treating her, he was on a 15-day leave, or some emergency had come or something, he had to leave for 15 days. So she stayed put 15 days, kept on having the vibhuti and waiting for the doctor. Finally, when the doctor was back, they had to head to Buffalo from Boston. And there the doctor has to do initial diagnosis before doing the surgery. So he did the initial diagnosis. And when he did the diagnosis, he said, why have all of you all come here? There is nothing wrong with her heart. Her heart is clean. Then they had got all these reports. So they said, see, these are the reports. The best hospitals in Mumbai have said that she needs a surgery. My grandfather said, please do some small surgery. We can't keep coming again. Doctor said, what's wrong with you? We can't do any surgery. Her heart is absolutely hale and heart. So in fact, he said you should go to Niagara Falls and have some nice pictures taken and come back. She's that healthy. So that's how, I mean, you know how it is with Swami. These are the small life-changing events which keep telling
wonderful.
that he's there with you, and that's how he operates. So that's my grandmother. And
Excellent. So I'm presuming that your journey also started from the very birth itself.
yes. So that for that I'll go to my grandfather's story. He was it's actually a freedom fighter. He participated in the Quit India movement and went to jail also for 2 years fighting for India's independence. And then was an agricultural economist and a very eminent academician in Bombay University. So his approach to Swami was very intellectual. He heard for Swami first in 1968 during the first World Conference. And that's when he realized that this is not an ordinary person. What he's saying, how he's saying, the conviction with which he's saying is not ordinary. So that's how his journey started, with Swami's message and reading up his literature, listening to his discourses. And he also had the opportunity to interact with some of the teachers and faculty at Vrindavan, Professor Nanjundaya, Professor V.K. Gokak. In fact, the initial discussions about our university were held at his house in Mumbai, in Khar. Professor V.K. Gokak was the first vice chancellor, and Mr. Shah from the Central Trust. All of them were ideating together. And my grandfather was a colleague of Dr. Madhuri Shah, who was the chairman of UGC.
UGC
So
Council, yes.
Yeah, yeah, and that was the time when our university got acknowledged as a deemed university, got the deemed university status. So he had that opportunity to play that role. But the most
It's
important,
it's nice to be in the history of God. How things have
Hmm.
been coming through.
Yeah,
It's beautiful. Hmm.
yeah, and you can't plan. He plans. You just have to be available. Swami always used to say, "No, make yourself available. That's all I ask. You don't have to do anything. I just want your availability." So his life turning event was 1980, around Ram Navami time, when my mother, my grandparents got an interview in Vrindavan, and that was a Thursday. And he the first thing he said is, "Swami, today is Thursday. Please." In fact, they were waiting for interviews in so many days. There's a very nice joke associated with that. They were waiting for an interviews in so many days. First, they went to Puttaparthi, then they went to Vrindavan, and they were waiting. And then the first thing when Swami they came inside, Swami said, कितना ढूंढा कितने दिन से इंतजार करता है." So my grandmother later told me, क्या कितना ढूंढा, हम कितने दिन से इंतजार किया, आप क्या ढूंढे, हमें हम ढूंढ रहे थे. But there's so much of symbolism
Just
in.
to just to translate, he saw me said, "I have been searching for you. I have been searching for you. Where were you
Yes.
so far?" Okay,
Yes.
cool.
So, and in that, my grandfather said, "Swami, today is Thursday. You please accept me as your disciple and you be my guru." Swami touched his heart like this here, and he said, "No, no, no, no. I am not your guru. Your conscience is your guru. Always follow your conscience. That is your guide in life." And then my grandfather prayed. My mother was there, so he said, "Swami, my child for my daughter." He prayed. Swami said, "Yes, yes. She has a son. He will be born next year. So bring him here after that." And then immediately materialized Vibhuti and gave my mother. And then my mother was holding in her hand, saying that she will give my father because my father was not there for the interview. So Swami said, "Nahi, nahi, ye tumhare liye hai." He made her open and eat up the full thing. Kha jao, eat it fully, entirely. He made her eat all that Vibhuti. And exactly a year later, I was born, and it was a Thursday. And that's how my physical journey began.
Journey started with Swami.
Yeah.
So I presume that your childhood was always in the environment of Bhagwan. So you must have come quite often to Parthi.
Yes. So first visit was so we couldn't come the immediate year after I was born because my paternal grandfather passed away very young. So the situation at home wasn't very convenient for me to be brought to Puttaparthi or Vrindavan. But in '83, that's when I came to Puttaparthi for the first time. And what my mother tells me is that one of my experiences, which I don't recollect, but which she has told me, is when the first time I was sitting in the darshan line with my mom on the ladies' side, and so I used to come out of the interview room, and we used to go around first on the ladies' side, then on the gents' side, and go back. I was sitting in my mother's lap, and we were sitting in the first row or the second row because mom wanted me to get Omkaram done. I mean, the Dakshara Bhyasam done by Swami. So we were given opportunity to sit ahead. And then Swami said, then I used to point at Swami's side and I used to tell my mom, "Mummy, see, Jyoti, Jyoti means, I would say Divo means Diya means Jyoti, light." So I used to point at Swami and my mother used to say, where is the light? So I used to point at Swami and wherever Swami is going, I used to tell her, "Mummy, see light, Mummy, see light, Mummy, see light." So my grandfather had mentioned to Professor Nanjandaya, he was that evening, that this is what happened this morning. So Professor Nanjandaya said, "Oh, that is such a great experience. This child in his very first visit is able to see the Divya Jyoti in Swami. It's a very, very rare experience." And that trip, Swami also did the Akshara Abhyasam. He took the slate and wrote Om for me. And my grandfather did a very nice thing. He went outside, the professor and him, he went outside, and that day itself got that thing framed. So that actual writing of Om by Swami is intact. It's been almost 4 decades now, but it's
And
intact.
it's a very rare blessing. He has given it to many children, but it's a very rare
Yes.
blessing
Yes.
because
Yes.
it initiates you into education.
Yes.
What better than God initiating you into learning, you know?
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so it's a great blessings.
Yes.
So let
Yes.
us fast forward now. Yeah, like because I'm a little curious to, you know, I'm sure people listening to you with all these backdrop, why did you wait till 2002 to join Parthi? So there must have happened something in the middle. So how did your interest in Bhagwan, you know, really mature and
Yeah.
turned
So
into you?
yeah. So I think one thing, of course, is I was home tutored in terms of Bal Vikas. I never went to Bal Vikas as such. My mom is has been my Bal Vikas guru in all possible ways. So everything that they teach in Bal Vikas, she single-handedly done that at home. And the annual trips to Parthi, Gujarati New Year was a special time we used to go because Swami used to give Pad Namaskar on Gujarati New Year Day. So we wouldn't miss that. Yeah, that's the photo from the very first visit, 83. That's the mandir in the background. And yeah, that's my grandmother holding me with the ad block in the background. So yeah, we used to, and that's my grandfather, again, ad block entrance.
Hmm.
Uh, so we used to go every Gujarati New Year day, but it was like Swami is divine and Swami is God, as it is with all side devotee families. So no, but a young mind has not much curiosity till class 10. When I was first time very curious, I started getting curious because that's when the mind, the intellect starts maturing, start asking fundamental questions. So that's when I, after from class 11, I started reading a lot of books on Swami, his life, especially a lot of biographical accounts, Satyam Shivam Sundaram, Loving God, all the books possible which give Swami's story and experiences. I would have read about two, three dozen of those books in that duration. And that was also the time I got an opportunity to visit USA. And I used to go to the retreats there. They have annual retreats organized by the international organization, every region. And there, in my first visit, 98, Vedanarayan sir was a keynote speaker. So that was my first exposure to experiences between Swami and students. He had elaborated all the personal experiences that he had, his batch of students had been blessed with from the 70s. So that was when the first curiosity of the advantage and the joy of being a Sai student dawned on me, because I was reading all these books about Swami, but there was no other way I could get close to Swami except that Path Namaskar on Gujarati New Year Day. So what else is a avenue? So this is the first avenue. I thought, wow, this is the childlike mind. This is a great avenue. And the next year, Mr. Jagadishan was the keynote speaker from Malaysia. And he spoke elaborately on the importance of being a part of the organization and the youth wing. And the previous year, the first World Youth Conference was organized in Prashantini. So it's very inspiring in his speeches. So that's when I was inspired to join the organization. So all this while, you can imagine we were active in the larger ecosystem, but no involvement in any tangible official way. But I did a
Isn't,
small
isn't it
deal with Swami.
interesting that you have to go to US to get inspired to come back to Parthi?
Yes, yes, exactly. So people go to Puttaparthi, Bombay, most international travelers. I went from Bombay to Boston and then got my path to Puttaparthi. So for joining the organization, I did a small deal with Swami mentally because he was very inspiring, Mr. Dr. Jagdishan, that you should join the organization. So I said, Swami, if I stand first in my class 12 exams, I will join the organization. I used to do well in exams, Swami's grace. So that's the deal, and nobody knew about it. Only I and Swami. And that year in the 12th class exam, I not only stood first in college, I stood first in all the 20 colleges of the ecosystem in which I was studying, and 10th in Mumbai among 60,000 students. So he sealed it. You want first in college, I'll give you what achievement that you can never go back on your commitment that if this happens, I will do that. And then it happens only once. What we do is we get into these deals. If you do this, this will happen. He will do it once to introduce you. Then it has to be internal motivation. And ever since, I've been extremely associated. We did Dharma Kshetra, education in human values program, lot of work. Those 3 years were very, very learn. It was a great learning experience. And then came my final year, and I wanted to, and by then I had made up my mind to do my MBA in Puttaparthi. I had to convince my father, because he was a devotee. He had come to Puttaparthi several times, but not a traditional devotee as we know in our scheme of things. His faith and surrender to Swami is immense, but the way of looking at Swami is a little different, and that everybody's experience is different. So it took me a long time to convince him, and finally I could. But there was a big roadblock, and that was that the entrance exams at Puttaparthi were around the same time as the final exams in Bombay University. And I would not have been able to do both, because you know how it is in a university. We have to have the entrance final exams done. Only then you are eligible for your MBA. So I had written a letter to Swami in the previous year, August, September time. That Swami, this is the problem. I don't think I'll be able to wait for one entire year after my BCom. See, we are writing our constraints to go closer to the master, and telling him that if you want me to come close to you, please do this. But it was more humble and prayerful. Swami, please do something so that I can join you. And 2 months later, and I sent the letter with one of the Balvika's gurus from Bombay, Kamakshi auntie. She had just relocated then to Puttaparthi, and her husband gave the letter to Swami. Swami took the letter, and 2 months later, I think it was the first time in the history of Mumbai University the final exams got advanced by 2 months. And Mumbai University is not a small university. It has 300 to 400 affiliating colleges and several lakhs of students who give exams every year. In commerce alone, there are 60 to 80,000 students. But en masse, the exams were advanced by 2 months. I finished all my exams in first week of April, and I had 5 weeks to prepare for the Prashant Liam MBA entrance exam. So yeah, that's how he sealed it there as well.
When he wants something, he can do anything.
Yes, he can do it. He can change exam schedules of the largest university in the country, because he may want a particular student for some task which he knows best.
So in 2002, you applied and you got into the MBA program.
Yes, yes. 2002, I was, I got into my MBA program in Puttaparthi.
And I believe that was also the summer course, last summer course of the second phase of summer courses, if I may say.
Yes, yes, that's why. So you won't believe I had just, the entrance exam was on 9th of May. On 10th morning, we had the group discussion, and that afternoon only we had the interview. And then I left Puttaparthi to go back, saying that it'll take some time, because usually it's a week, 10 days before the results come. Hopefully I'll get selected and we'll be back in 1st of June. In 2 days, I got a telegram in Mumbai. Join in 2 days, summer course begins.
Welcome to Bhagwan's way of working.
Yes. So I had 2 days in Mumbai to wind up everything, and arrived in Vrindavan on the 14th of May 2002. And I was wondering why Swami at this summer course. I needed more time to kind of get ready to tune in. But on hindsight, I feel to have been part of the summer course, and unfortunately,
it's a fantastic initiation program, if I may put it in a simple way. And
yes.
I feel it's a blessing to be part of that summer courses, which he used to organize. So how was your understanding and impression about summer course?
Yeah,
so you got inducted into it, right?
Yes, yes. So technically I joined Vrindavan first, and then Prashant Nilayam. So for 15 days I was there, and as I said, the first day when we were sitting there, one of my classmates, two of my classmates, Vishwanath and Ganesh, they stood up on their knees, and the Swami came to the students' block, looked at them, and then they gave a letter to Swami and said, "Swami, we are new MBA boys." Swami looked at all the boys sitting in the block, and all the new boys used to get chance to sit first. Swami looked at all of them, then looked up in a reverie, and he said, he shook his head and said, "Old, old, all are old." So, you know how it is. We think it's new. We are first year, first visit.
The association of God is very old. So
correct. So So we've separated from him. So he knows how long that has been. So nobody is new. In our journey away from him and back to him, we are all old fellow travelers. So summer course was a very, very transformative learning experience because from Mumbai University and all the facilities at home and in a metropolitan city, you land up in a ecosystem where you have 40 boys in a room for the summer course staying, and an extremely tight schedule from morning to night, from dawn till late night, everything extremely regimented, everything extremely collective, and everything extremely Swami focused. The entire 15 days were like a Gurukula system in action, in absolute action, because there was no secular education. It was all spiritual education. It was exactly the way it was when we heard about how Rama and Krishna and in the eons gone by, gurukuls used to operate. We saw here in action how gurukuls operate, and it was a mass induction and training program, introducing thousands of students to what this university is all about, and what the whole vision of the founder chancellor is, and how it is going to be in your stay there. In those in those 2 weeks, you get exposed to the entire thing, and the kind of involvement Swami has in terms of every activity from morning to night. Morning classes, we got a flavor of everything. Though it was the last summer course, Swami coming for the inaugural discourse, Swami giving the valedictory discourse. Swami came only once, but came once to the hostel to see everybody sit for meals. Every evening discourse. That year, the theme was Ramayana. The exams, they used to have exams at the end of the summer course. And I still remember Swami had come to the auditorium when we were writing the exams. And I was in the very first row. And I was writing the exam paper. And imagine Swami standing there in front of you when you're writing the exam. So, I mean, I close now as I'm narrating to you, I close my eyes and I cannot believe myself that I'm actually writing an exam. And Swami is like an examiner standing there. He came to see, he was looking around, he looked at all of us, and we were amazed. I mean, what an opportunity! You are writing an exam, and
I want to tell the audience, listeners, that Bhagwan used to always insist that summer course is my program, and all the attendees will take exam, and it was an unsaid rule. Everybody has to get high marks, and his cutoff was like over 90%. So, and it was he used to come. That what you're mentioning was he would go like an invigilator to round,
yeah,
and exams were happening in the auditorium, right?
auditorium.
So
Yes, yes,
he walked
yes,
up and
yes.
down the auditorium. It was nice.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a phenomenal experience, and it was like a trailer. Kibay, this is just the beginning. The next 2 years are going to be as action-packed, as exciting, adventurous, also as most enjoyable and
If I
lovable.
ask you to summarize, what do you think, from your opinion, was the purpose and the goal of summer course? Now, looking back, you can always.
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, my from the students' perspective, it was a brilliant induction and training program, no doubt. But to limit the summer courses to the students and the direct benefits they got wouldn't be fair. Swami's vision with the summer course was very grand as I look back, and because I've been a very active student of Swami's literature. In fact, that's how Swami started the summer course in 1972, the first 7 summer courses in the 1970s. He said, Bharatiyas or Indians are like the elephant, which is tied to a rope by the mahout. The mahout says, sit down, it'll sit down, and stand up, it'll stand up, because the elephant is not aware of its power. Bharatiyas are not aware of the power of their culture and spiritual traditions. And since nobody is taking up the responsibility of teaching them that secret, I take up the responsibility on myself to teach them. And the kind of message and discourses that Swami has given over those 50
Phenomenal.
summer courses are a phenomenal treasure house of literature. Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharat, Ramayana, Upanishads, Vedanta, Shaddarshanas, Bhajagovindam from Adi Shankaracharya, all major texts that are a must for any spiritual aspirant or a spiritual student. Swami has covered in great detail. I think those 250 discourses should be a must read for every Sai devotee who wants to understand. And another part, from the keeping the youth in mind. Swami was not addressing sadhakas. Swami was not addressing some sannyasis. Swami was addressing young minds from the age of 18 to 28, from class 11 to PhD scholars. So the entire set of discourses are pitched at that level. And the level at which Swami expected us to rise and the passion with which he communicated about the power of Indian culture and spirituality is phenomenal. I like to share one thing there, which tells us how unique this opportunity was and how universally important this treasure is. Mr. Vajpayee, who eventually became the Prime Minister of India, he had come for as a chief guest for the summer course in 1978, and in his valedictory address, it is documented. He said that you students do not realize the value of this great opportunity that you have got in learning dharma from Baba himself. I wish politicians sit at his lotus feet and learn the dharma as he's teaching you, so that India and the world and its welfare to the vision of the Vedic era. That's the kind of vision Swami had, and he delivered through those 15 summer courses. I think it's a phenomenal treasure which each one of us should cherish, and a lot of study should happen on the message that Swami is given there. Because while the joy, like the joy of receiving the Gita, was for Arjuna, he got everything, and we hear, but his message is for the remaining 5,000 years. Similarly, we can be the Arjunas, but this message will be useful for millennia.
Actually, 70 summer courses were open to all the youths around the country. And
Yes,
they had to really give a kind of a test and approved through the center's organization to come to the summer course.
right,
And the 2000, when he restarted, it was restricted to the students alone.
right,
So that was
right.
done. I agree with you 100%. It's a course which everybody, if we can get it, is great. And I would be very happy to revive it, anywhere in the world. It's a phenomenal concept of Bhagwan, no doubt about it. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's take
agreed.
the journey forward.
Yes,
So,
yes,
so from summer course, after summer course, now you move back to Puttaparthi to
yes,
continue your real program, or should I say, the MBA program, which was supposed to be your main focus.
right, right.
Uh, so, how did you find Puttaparthi now as a student? How was the hostel, college? Let's start with hostel life then.
Yeah, so let me remember the day we landed in the hostel. That was 31st of May 2002, from Vrindavan to Puttaparthi in buses. You know how it used to be. It used to be a caravan of buses leaving Vrindavan Ashram. And I mean, you just need to close your eyes and relive those moments. Everybody singing bhajans and reliving the days at the summer course. And it was like
Eating on the way.
eating on the way, and Swami making arrangements that you ensure that you take everything. Sometimes he used to load fruities and some snacks items
Yeah.
that boys can take a break, etc. So when I came on the first day in the hostel, I was just overwhelmed with the size of the hostel. I mean, I don't know whether anybody has told you that or not, but
What do you mean by that?
coming from Mumbai, where real estate is at a premium and the kind of size of rooms and buildings are very restricted, here I saw a palace. It was a palace with nearly 100 rooms, and you just have to keep walking from one end to the other. Even if you just walk each of the floors once, you'll cover at least a kilometer. That is the size of our hostel. It's a fantastic infrastructure, and that was what was my first impression. I said, my God, this is like a mini city in itself. Everything self-sustained. You don't need to go anywhere. But then I came to know over the next few weeks that the city has to be run by us only. So, so the entire concept of the way the hostel is run, the self-reliance departments, the regimented schedule from Suprabhatam till night prayer, the way how hostel, institute, and mandir are integrated. In fact, in later years, we even created an acronym, HIM. What is the university about? HIM, Hostel, Institute, Mandir. It is also about him. So HIM and him. So these aspects kind of emerged as I started actively participating in the schedule. And what really struck me was the God centricity of life. I think that's one of the most outstanding learnings of the hostel. I remember it was shared in one of the Parayanam sessions. Um, One of the devotees asked Swami, how do we succeed and progress in our sadhana? What kind of schedule should we follow? Swami said, go and find out the schedule my boys are following in the hostel. If you can follow that, that's the best schedule for sadhana. So that's the kind of arrangement Swami has made, so that without our realization, the sadhana is happening. Without
Happening.
without our awareness, we are leading an absolute God-centered life. Everything that we do, if you are studying, you want to get an O grade because Swami will be happy. If you are a little more ambitious, you want the gold medal, Swami will put the gold medal around your neck and you'll get a photo opportunity. You want to get into a self-reliance department and use your talents, whether it's making cakes or it is running the publications department or the dietary services for sick students or the dispensary for ill students or the multimedia which takes photographs and videos. Every activity in the hostel is makes me happy. Every event, sports meet, whatever daredevil stunts you undertake, why? At the end of the day, when you look at the stage, Swami will be happy, he will raise his hands, he will bless you. That is the end of convocation drama, same end of every objective. I mean, the only objective of every activity was to make Swami happy. So, what we see is God centricity of life. That God centricity was unknowingly incorporated in the way we think. The
It's
other part,
integrated. It's
integrated.
integrated in the whole
Yes.
system.
And the other part, which was a great learning, was I mean, I've been having the opportunity to address devotees across the world as a part of the organization. The common question which always comes up is this connected with the compartmentalization of life, spiritual life and personal life, or professional life, or family life. Samiti work, center work is Swami's work. My home related activities, my wife, my children, my job, my boss, all that is separate. So how do I balance? People say, how do we get time to do both the things? How do I balance this and that? Yeah, I'm not able to give Swami time. These are the common kind of questions. In the stay in the hostel and in our system, this one thing never occurs to you because there is no compartmentalization of any kind. You don't need to think of spirituality separately. You are groomed in such a way that you are spiritualizing your daily life in everything that you do. And that I think is a phenomenal learning. I think the best of spiritual sadhana also does not give you that mindset, because the moment you come out of meditation, those who are very fond of meditation, again the worldly thoughts and priorities take over. But here there is no opportunity for worldly thoughts and priorities, because we have just removed the goggles. We put on the goggles where everything is Swami's work, everything is to make Swami happy. So from the Bhagavatam, Swami used to quote, Sarva karma bhagavad prityartham. That is what I want all of you to do. That is how he trained all of us de facto while we were part of the system. So this, I think, were the two phenomenal learnings, if you ask me, in very tangible ways. And also, it gave a feeling of how the Gurukula system in Rama and Krishna's time trained them for difficult times ahead. Our system has really trained us for all kinds of situations in the future. The diversity of people. You're from Kashmir, I'm from Gujarat, somebody's from Tamil Nadu, somebody's from Assam. Everybody's food is different, everybody's language is different, everybody's priorities are different. But how do we learn to stay with each other, accommodate? The biggest problem in the world today, which we face, is not being able to appreciate diversity and live as one family. I think the hostel taught us that. In one room, 12 to 16 boys, and purposely each of them was from a different background. Your rough edges get evened out, and you learn to be accommodative, humble, synergy, one family. We start calling each other brother. I mean, that it took me 15 days to say that because we are not used to it. I used to find it so awkward. Brother, do this, brother, do that. I would say, how can I call somebody brother just like that? Today we say brother, brother, it has become a second nature. But Swami
I actually
instilled that.
I wanted to ask you this because you came from a different upbringing environment, and suddenly you land into a regimented ashram lifestyle. So you must have had a really challenging adjustment phase. Did you, or
Yes,
how
yes, I
did?
did. Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering, like, I'm sure people must have helped you, but it must be a little challenging for you to, you know, accept.
It- yeah, so I would say that it was challenging for me. I realized from the fact that in the first 6 months I lost 12 kgs. So that was the first indicator that yes, this is challenging on me. But honestly, let me tell you, I never felt the challenge in any tangible terms, because I was in those 5 years from my 11th class till I actually joined, I was literally yearning to get close to song. And here, from the last row, I have sat for long years in the last row of Kulwanthal, because as normal devotees, we don't have any privileges. I mean, I never had any privileges. I have struggled, I had prayed, Swami, at least let me get entry into the Kulwanthal during birthday festivals. And I get to sit in the last row and see Swami in that white robe on that blue, majestic blue throne. From there, coming to the first row, you walk in and you get to sit in the first row, and Swami will come and sit just 3 steps away from you. We were in the first row, and Swami used to be 3 steps on that chair from the portico. Everything, you're willing to go through any kind of difficulties for those 2 hours a month. In
That
the
privilege.
Yes, you get up in the morning here. We used to run. I mean, to 2:20, the college used to be supposed to be getting over. If the teacher takes 5 7 minutes extra, we were all looking at the clock again and again. And by 2:30, if the teacher doesn't leave us, they would know that these boys will just run away. We would run to the hostel, throw our chappals on the side, take the darshan mat, not bother about tea, coffee, stand in lines, and then by class wise the lines go to mandir. And we used to start walking, and as we pass every building, the walking became speed walking, then it became fast speed walking. And by the time we were at Ganesh gate, it was as if some magnetic force had overtaken us. We used to just throw the chappals near the generator, which was on the right hand side as you enter Ganesh gate, and run into the darshan hall and catch that first row. Not only that, the ambitious ones used to get 2 mats while put in the first row because you've come first, then go into the bhajan hall and put it in, so in the just behind the bhajan boys. One Swami came in the bhajan hall first instead of the mandir, and then he saw all the mats on the bhajan hall floor and our batch only. He looked at all of that and he said, "AMT, the railway station. What is this? Is this a railway station? You all have all put mats here." So that was the kind of longing. We didn't want to lose a single moment. So that, I think, has been this. There was a single motivation for the entire 9 years in Swami's physical form. I had never missed a darshan, irrespective of exams, irrespective of anything, because I knew the value of sitting in the student block. Because for 20 years prior to that, I used to sit in the last block and train my neck for a glimpse.
Shashank, would you say it was an attraction of the form or your understanding of God? What was it?
I would say it was a mysterious force. I mean, Swami's people try to make Swami's divinity into a formula. Miracles plus omniscience plus social welfare projects equals to Swami or equals to divinity. None of these formulas work. By defining God, we are defiling God. In my personal experience, the most distinguishing factor of Swami's divinity is his presence. There is such a unquantifiable attraction and magnetic power in his presence that you just keep looking at him. You keep looking at him. I mean, imagine looking at somebody continuously every day, and just and whatever he's doing the same things every day. You just go on looking at him. There are tears in your eyes, your hair are standing on end. Sometimes you are shivering when he passes by you. He's ignoring you, he's calling you, all kinds of things happen. But there is that unquantifiable experience which cannot be described. I think that's why Vyasa, Valmiki, Vasishtha, all of them were great sages, but they yearned to be by there when Rama and Krishna took the avatar. Because to be in his presence was an experience which would not come even from the highest wisdom. And that's why they wanted to be contemporaries of the avatar. I think that is an unquantifiable characteristic which only can be got by experience. There is no description of that. I think that is what put. I can never define divinity. You cannot define. The mind and the tongue are not capable. But the experience, Swami always used to say, don't try to understand me. Experience me. In fact, Mr. Raja Reddy had said a very nice thing. He was Swami's servitor for 20 years. He said, in my 20 years, if I can share one key learning, his interview, said two things, 2 points. He said, you usually tend to analyze God and experience the world, its joys, its sorrows, its attractions, its enjoyments, and you tend to analyze God. Is he right? Is he, or his message, or his glory, whatever. He said, flip that. Analyze yourself and your actions in the context of the world and experience God and his message. I think this is the distilled essence of how we can
Beautiful.
make the most of divinity.
A
Experience him.
sage, a sage like Raja Reddy can say that in such a simple
Yes.
words, you know.
So my experience is similar. Experience him, analyze yourself, and there's a lot of learning in the process.
See, this is, I think, one of the very important benefits or perks of being a student, that Bhagwan allows this experience to happen in that beautiful manner. Let me open the floor for you right now, because I know right now your heart must be bubbling with thoughts. So let me open it up and think of some memories of those era as a student in Parthi, interactions with Bhagwan, and share something. Maybe your some personal or intimate stories with Bhagwan, whatever interactions, if you can
Yeah,
share
yeah,
something.
yeah. So some I'll share a few of them. Uh, One, of course, is connected with my visits to America. So that's my most beloved mother, both my mothers, one divine mother and one physical mother. This experience, and that's my father. This is the experience from 2003.
Hmm.
Uh, I was blessed to speak for the Vice Chancellor's Conference in Prashantinalayam. There was a Golden Jubilee UGC Vice Chancellor's Conference. And Swami had selected a few of us to talk about our experiences and a few of us to talk about the Gram Seva program, which was started in 2000. And I was a green card holder. So I mentioned to you about America. Actually, my grandparents had applied for a green card, and my father's desired that I should study abroad, overseas, get experience, international exposure. And I put cold water on all his plans, and he was very supportive because he knew my intentions. And instead of going abroad, as I said, from Boston, I came to Puttaparthi. So the green card was there, and I was supposed to be renewing that green card every year. That's the uh, mandate. You have to renew your green card every year if you wanted to continue. So we had got a special permission for 2 years, but in 2003 I had to go to renew my green card. So I was waiting what to do, and this was a great opportunity because Swami was calling us for practice sessions in Purnachandra. So he called us, and there I was sitting with a letter during the practice sessions. And Swami took the letter, and then he read the whole letter. I had expressed myself. He looked at the letter and he said, America. I still remember his eyes open. America. Then he said, हाँ जाओ जाओ America जाओ. Go to America. Go to America. And for the remaining part of the 1.5 hours, every few minutes he look at me. I was sitting right near his feet. Go to America. Go to America. And it became a joke. All the other students, the administrators, so what is happening? Only I knew what's happening. Then all practice sessions got over, and then Swami had arranged for snacks for us. And idli and chutney was the snack. So idli and chutney we were having, and we were eating. Imagine Swami sitting there, and we were eating idli and chutney in his presence. Then he looked at me, he smiled, and he said, "America जाएगा, तो chutney नहीं मिलेगा. If you go to America, you will not get
You
chutney."
won't.
So everybody laughed. I was the butt of all the jokes, and but he didn't say till the end what his instructions or guidance was. Then, as we moved out, one of the senior research scholars he asked me, "What was Swami saying about America and idli chutney and all. So I explained to him this was what I'd written in the letter. So he said, "Oh, last year Swami gave us an interview, and all of us were also had the opportunity of having idli chutney in the interview room. And there, in the course of the snack, Swami asked, 'What is idli and what is chutney?' So each of the students said the different things, and finally the consensus was, Swami, idli is big, so God is idli, and chutney is less in quantity. So the world is like chutney." So that's what they said. Then Swami said, "Kadu, wrong.
Oh,
World is like idli and God is like chutney, because without chutney there is no value for idli. Without God, world has no value. It's absolutely useless." So then research scholars said, when Swami said, if you go to America, you will not get chutney, it means if you go to America, you will not get the proximity of God.
God.
And that's it. That I made up my mind through that indirect, secret, spiritual advice. And I will give up my green card, because I had to go. If I don't go that year, it's gone. Long conversations with my parents, but I must say both of them were very accommodative. I let go of my green card. And the connected experiences in 2004, in June, my MBA is over. I come home after 2 years, and for a week. I mean, after you finish your program, you cannot sit in students block, and only students know the trauma of sitting in old students. Let me confess, and I never ever wanted to sit in the old students block, and this is with due respect to all the old students, but desire. So on the last day of completing my MBA, I wrote a letter to Swami. I said, Swami, I'm going to Bombay. I have not been there for 2 years. As soon as you come to Puttaparthi, I will come. I sent that letter. I went. Swami came back to Puttaparthi in 7 days. On 7th June, he was back. On 9th June, I was back. I was grumbling to my mom that morning. I said, I don't know what Swami has in store, because you have to wait. Waiting boys, you know how they wait for years together for Swami's guidance. I don't know what will happen. Swami, my mother said, why do you worry? When you have left it to Swami, Swami will take care. I go to the mandir. First day of coming back, Swami comes from the portico. By then he was taking help for walking. Brother Prushti was holding his hand. Swami came directly to me and he said, "Kya karta hai?" I said, "Swami, MBA ho gaya." I folded my hands. Should I translate in Hindi?
No, no.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what
We'll
are
do
you
a
doing?
translation.
Okay, okay. Kya karta hai? I said MBA. I said MBA ho gaya. MBA ho gaya. I said, yes, Swami.
MBA is done.
MBA is done. You completed your MBA in a fraction of a second. PhD karo, like a declaration. PhD karo. 6 times he said, PhD karo, PhD karo. He's like looking at the portico and announcing, PhD karo. And Mr. Chakravarti was standing behind Swami. He said, Swami, this boy has got O grade, 5 out of 5, is a very good student. He said, Swami, you'll have to write the NET exam. So then Swami looked at me and said, see, he's telling that you'll have to write the NET exam. I'm not telling, he's telling. But that was a rule of the government by then, that NET exams are desirable for PhD students. Then he went away. Then again he called me after a few minutes. He said, last year tum bola ki foreign jata hai, jata hai? I said, nahi Swami, nahi jata. Nahi jata hai? I said, nahi Swami. Good.
Not going.
Good boy. You're not. You told me last year you're going overseas. I said, yes, Swami. Not going? No, Swami. Good boy. Good boy. Very happy. Very happy. Patted. It continued. 2005, Kodaikanal. We're sitting around Swami. I'll complete this story because all connected. So I'm just leaving the chronology aside.
Sure.
2005, we were sitting around Swami in the Sai Shruti Mandir. I gave a talk. That is, Swami asked me to talk on Shirdi Baba and Swami. And he said, sab baat karo, Shirdi Parthi ka comparative analysis karo. Shirdi Baba and Sai Baba, Satya Sai Baba avatar comparison. I gave the talk, I sat down, and then he said, this boy, last year, he was going to America. Visa,
He'll keep pulling that.
everything ready. Last minute cancelled. Isn't it? Nobody knows, only I know the story. 2006, December, Swami called us in the interview room for going to Chennai, for blessing us to go with him to Chennai, Atirudra Mahayag. He said, where is that boy who wanted to go to America? Nobody knew, only Lakshman Narasimham sir was a registrar, he knew. So then Swami will always give descriptions. Swami Lakshman Narasimham said it was me, so sent for me. I came in the interview room, and as Swami looked at me, he smiled. Ah, yeah, boy, this boy wanted to go to America. 2007, Kodaikanal. Again, I gave a talk, and Mr. G.K. Raman, he was the chairman of Sundaram Group. And he said, Swami said, you know this boy, how old he is? What is he studying? So Swami said, tell him what you are studying. So I said, Swami, I finished my MBA. He said, Chudu, MBA అయిపోయింది. He finished his MBA. Then I said, Swami, I finished my MPhil also. Chudu, MPhil kuda అయిపోయింది. Then I said, Swami, I'm doing my PhD. Chudu, ఇప్పుడు PhD చేస్తున్నాడు. Swami got a little emotional. He said, this boy wanted to go to America, but because of Swami, he stayed back. And now he's getting so many benefits. He's studying so well. And almost broke down. See, when Swami says you take one, I will take towards you. In my life, this is the most tangible experience of a small decision. After all, for many people, these opportunities are the acme of life. But if we prioritize God over the world, you will not only get the world, you'll get God also. And as you introduced me as a fellow at Harvard, that's what happened. I not only got not only finally got the experience at Harvard, which my father wanted me to get, and that's also because of Swami's grace. We'll cover that sometime. But I got the opportunity to stay with him for 12 years.
A long time. That's very
Yeah.
nice.
So that is a series of experiences. I can share a few more if time permits.
Sure, we can do that. You want to tell about the ring one?
Yeah. So you want to tell both the rings or one ring?
Anything. Let's have 2 minutes.
No,
And then
no, I remember Professor Anil Kumar used to joke because these teachers are phenomenal. I must say, I've seen some of your earlier interviews. The students, the earlier students talk about those time teachers. I talk about the teachers in my time. So Anil Kumar was a great support for students, and he used to always push students to go closer to Swami. He'll always publicly tell Swami, this boy is good in that. This boy is good in that. I mean, they always wanted us to make the most of the opportunity and created opportunities for us to go close to him. So I remember Anil Kumar said, I got my second ring. He said, two rings. Then he said, touring is okay. No touring. Don't let your mind go here and there. Two rings, but no touring. So yeah, coming back to this is the first one. It was 2005. I was in my MBA, and I was doing my MPhil. And I was in charge of one of the events, and it was the Shiva Tandavam dance, which was the inaugural program for the sports meet. And we had established this. We had set up this huge stage in the center of the Hillview Stadium. It was about 10, 12 feet high. And I was supposed to be responsible for starting that event, and it was getting delayed for some reason. So I took it upon myself, said, "Chalo jaldi, come on, let's do it fast," and put on the mats and etc. on the top. And in the process, I lost track that I was at the edge of the stage, and from the height of 12 feet, I fell on my back on the hard ground, bleeding and severely hurt, and somehow managed to go behind the stage so that I don't create a scene. And I fell down and the program began. So my classmates and others were joking, you were the coconut for this program. You broke and the program started. But it was quite a serious injury, and I was quite bedridden for almost 2 weeks. And the doctor said, the orthopedic said that it's only Swami's grace that you were saved. Tendons were injured, not the bones or the spine. Otherwise, that would have been very dangerous. And I was quite taking rest for 2 weeks. Republic Day, 26th of Jan, I remember. I had also developed a lot of cough and cold and all of that. Weakness, I couldn't stand. I didn't even go for flag hoisting that day. So that evening, I go to Kulwant Hall and sit in the 10th row. I'd written a gratitude letter to Swami, kept it in my book. Swami comes, sits there, he calls me. I went there, coughing. Where is the letter? So the letter was not in my hand. Where is the letter? I said, Swami, it's in the book. Go get it. So I went back, got the letter. gave it to Swami. He saw it. It was a gratitude letter for saving me. Then he said, "बात करता है?" I said, "Yes, Swami." "अभी जाऊं?" So he said, "नहीं नहीं बैठो, बताता है." I was extremely unwell. I was continuously coughing for the next 1 hour, and Swami was looking at me, coughing, coughing, coughing. But Swami blessed me to talk, commanded me to talk. That's it. He gives the strength, he gives the grace, he gives the opportunity. So after at 4:50, two most boys spoke before me. He called me. And then at 4:50, I started. And for 20 minutes, said, Lamba baat karo, speak for a long time. I was coughing, speak for a long time. Shirdi par sab stories batao, he said. 20 minutes I spoke. After that, Swami materialized and blessed me with the green diamond ring. And uh, and then I went back. When I went back, I realized that for those 20 minutes, I had the strength to stand, which I could not for a minute. I stood for 20 minutes. I had not coughed even once in that 20 minutes. I have the entire recording of that talk. And I was able to speak coherently despite severe illness for a fortnight. That night, Swami came in my dream and he blessed me. He came into the hostel room. I was lying in the room and he blessed. And he said, live a long life, healthy life, happy life, spiritually blessed life. So he is there when you are writing the letter. He is there when he accepts the letter. He is there when you go to sleep at night to reassure you that I'm not only in the mandir, not only in your waking state, even in the dream state. It is me in all the states of your existence. So that was a great experience. And second one, another ring, very, very connected with my PhD. Swami had blessed me to do PhD. I had got registered in 2007 March, and I got my first stipend. And I wanted to give my first stipend to Swami. In India, there's a tradition you give your first salary to your mother. So I wanted to give my first stipend to Swami. And, but you can't give money to Swami. You know how it is. If you give money to Swami, you will get the thrashing of your lifetime because that's something Swami takes very seriously. So, but still, how do you give that? So what I did was I wrote a letter of gratitude to Swami, put the stipend in that in notes, covered it from both sides, put it in a beautiful envelope. We went to Yajur Mandiram and handed over the letter there. I had the opportunity for various reasons to give a letter there. And I thought Swami must be receiving so many letters in that one more letter, it will be forgotten. I came back to the bhajan hall, sat in the 10th, 12th row, much behind than when usually I sit. And Swami came. By then he was coming in the chair. He came into the bhajan hall, and that envelope was in his hand. And he announced my name, Shashank Shah. So I hid further down. People next to me were poking me. Swami's calling me. Swami's calling me. I only know why Swami is calling me. I didn't want to go, but how can you not go? Swami is calling you. You are in the hall. You have to go. So I went there, and then Swami said, showed me the envelope. Ye tum diya? Did you give this? I said yes. Kyun diya? Why did you give this? I said, Swami, ye stipend hai. This is my stipend. It is my offering to you. Then he opened that. He said, नहीं ये मैं नहीं दिया ये यूनिवर्सिटी दिया this is given by university not by me this is for your boarding and lodging Swami used those words this is for your boarding and lodging keep it he counted the notes that I had put in the envelope as if he's counting it again put them back folded it pulled my pocket ahead put the notes inside he said don't give money to Swami like this तुमको चाहिए तो बोलो स्वामी जी देता है if you need anything you ask me I will give you don't give money to Swami and then I was folding my hands this was the first ring which he gave then he asked me did I give you this I said yes Swami and why have you put anything in front of it I said Swami because it is loose ooh it is loose and he materialized one more ring put it on my left hand and he said this is perfect size and then he put his hand on my head several times and he went back. Then again called me. He said, "Kabhi khatam karta hai PhD?" I said, "Swami, 3 saal, 3 years, 2.5 years में try कर सकता है." I said, "Swami, with your grace." In fact, 3 years earlier in the interview room, Swami had asked me, "What topic will you do your PhD?" I said, Swami, dharmic management. I was very enamored by Swami's message on dharma, values, man management. He said, oh, that's a very big topic. How will you do PhD in dharmic management? I said, Swami, with your grace, I will do. So, that, yes, yes, Tandika, Tandika. Whenever you say your grace, Swami will always faith. You have the faith that you may not have the capability. You depend on him. He will say, yes, faith, I will give you grace. So I said, Swami, you only said it's difficult. I said in my mind, now you're saying 2.5 years. How will I finish? So then in my mind, I was saying, I said, Swami, with your grace, I'll finish in 2.5 years. So I said, okay. He said, yes, yes. Then he paused for a second and he said, stipend bachane ke liye nahi bolta hai. It is good for you. Imagine. A youngster's mind may go to the fact that longer PhD means greater stipend by the university to the candidate. And so a typical mind may have that thought. So some even clarified stipend. I'm not asking you to finish fast so that the stipend is saved. It is
To
good.
save the stipend money. Yeah.
It is good for you. And I stuck to what Swami said. And because of that, because I stuck to his timeline, I was the recipient of the last degree that Swami gave in the last convocation that he physically presided over as a chancellor in
Oh,
2010.
oh,
So I
isn't
was
that
my
isn't that divinely,
exactly,
forecasted? Beautiful.
exactly, and timeline, but working backwards. A lot of devotees keep saying how why Swami left suddenly, why Swami did not tell us, etc. His timelines were exactly in place. He was calculating backward and telling me the time I will exactly the time I needed so that I was eligible to get PhD from his own hands, and I'm the last candidate to have received the degree from the founder, revered founder chancellor. So his
Beautiful.
timings
Beautiful.
are beyond him. Are
Yes.
beyond. Sorry. Uh, uh,
Shashank, let me show you some pictures
okay.
and let's run through them quickly. And
Sure.
you may choose to give us little bit of intro on that. So this is
Sure.
Mandir, right? This is our Prashanti Mandir.
This is Prashanti Mandir. This is 2005 Dasara time. Swami had called Brother Sudhindran and myself to assist him with the distribution of the dhotis to the pujaris. So after the dhotis were distributed, we were sitting next to Swami, and the
So
pujaris were
this is your Veda chanting avatar.
yes, Veda chanting, Veda Veda Purusha. This
Veda
is
Veda Purusha.
This is a parallel activity. So Grama Seva used to happen in the same season. This is 2007. I had the opportunity to assist the organizers as Vice Chancellor Professor Pandit and Professor Sudhir Bhaskar. And we are doing Aarti before the commencement of the
Very, he was one of the greatest economists, I should say,
yes,
and
yes,
a very, very great person to be our vice chancellor also.
yes,
Very
yes.
devoted man.
Very humble and
Very humble.
very exemplary personality.
Professor Vishwanath Pandit.
That's right.
And
That's right. He was a colleague of Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was a former prime minister.
yes, yes.
Yeah, these are all the talks that I was blessed with to give in Swami's presence. That was in 2002. This is 2004, Krishna Ashtami. Swami speaking in, Swami is in yellow robe, and we are in colored robes because that was the time when Swami used to ask for programs very often. So this is a
Yes.
part of the program. And it was
Uh,
my secret desire, let me share, that I should have a picture with Swami in all four colored robes that Swami
uh-huh.
wears. And believe me, in those 9 years, he created the opportunity that I got a picture each in all the four colored robes: orange, yellow, maroon, and white.
So
So
nice.
this is that
So
yellow one.
nice.
This is Krishnashtami. Yeah. This is Chennai. This is
This
the
is Chennai. Hmm.
Atirudra Mahayagnyam at Chennai.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is in World Youth Conference. I'll share a small experience about this. Uh, I
Sure.
was I was talking. I mean, Swami blessed me to talk in Kodaikanal in 2007 also. And after I gave my talk, I came back, and then Swami was I was sitting near Swami's feet, and in fact, two things. One thing I'll say share with public speaking, and then Swami said he asked me no, but let me say the other thing first. I spoke about some old time experiences about Konamma and others who used to help with the water and all. When there was no tap water, they used to get the pots of water for Swami's requirements in the mandir and all. So Mr. Giri was the vice chancellor, was the former vice chancellor, he was there with us. He said, Swami, he shared very nice old time stories, uh, so that we remember those days. Swami said, he was there in those times also. That's why I'm giving him these opportunities to speak again and again in my presence so that he can recollect and remember and relive those days.
So
And
sweet.
Konamma was there at least 3 decades before I was born in this form. In a similar experience in 2007 in interview room, I was Swami was there, and Swami was blessing us to accompany him to Chennai. Swami said, uh, just talking to each of them, and when my turn came, he said, this boy, he has spoken during the first world conference also in Bombay. I have seen him speak there. The first world conference in Bombay was at least a dozen years
68.
before I was born. 68, more than a dozen years. So his timelines are unknown to us. But in that Kodai trip, after I gave my talk and sat down, he said, why do you talk so softly when you give speeches? Gattiga matladu. Talk with firmness, talk with conviction. That is how you should speak in public. And those were not just words of advice or suggestion, it became an initiation. And that photo which you showed was my address at the World Youth Conference in 2007 in Prashantinilayam. And if you see that video, that is there on YouTube, my talk, 20 minutes, that force, that assertiveness, which Swami initiated me into just by that advice, is very evident. And I think ever since, that grace has continued to flow. So in our times, his words were limited, like simple pithy statements. But
Just speak slowly.
this
Asha,
is
this was, I think, the change of
Yes.
vice
So that's
chancellor. Yeah.
that's Professor Vishwanath Pandit's felicitation. He's sitting on the right hand side. This is the last talk I gave in Swami's physical presence. This was 2010 June. This was in our institute auditorium. So yeah, I mean, uh, if you since we're talking about Swami's life, I can share one experience there in that particular felicitation program. Usually, Swami felicitates the outgoing vice chancellor. And Professor Vishwanath Pandit had already been felicitated in 2006 when Swami felicitated 4 senior professors of our university. So in that particular felicitation program, and he had got that bangle, that golden bangle, he had got 5 years earlier. So
Yes.
the second bangle, we thought that, wow, what an opportunity, getting a second such a blessing from Swami. In that particular program, instead of felicitating the outgoing vice chancellor, Swami felicitate the incoming vice chancellor. And everybody in the audience, the administrators and backstage, everybody's, oh, why Swami doing this? This is outgoing vice chancellor's felicitation. Swami made a mistake. Something happened. Someone didn't communicate properly. You know how we ascribe things to Swami in a very physical way. We realized after that he was the last vice chancellor in Swami's physical lifetime, and he knew he was not going to be physically around to felicitate him. So he had blessed his appointment. So he felicitated him in advance, and completed that responsibility also of the as a founder chancellor. So
Yes. Yes.
every aspect of his life, the timing is perfect. It's not to our understanding, but perfect time.
See, we make such a blunder, if I may say, in interpreting Bhagwan.
Correct.
As you rightly reminded, that God is to be experienced, not interpreted.
Correct.
But what to do? Human minds are crazy. Anyway, so this is your drama
Yeah,
sections now.
these are all convocation dramas. This was the first one that I was blessed to participate. Dr. Abdul Kalam, President of India, was the chief guest, and Swami
Aha,
said,
is that one? Okay, okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
people thought that Swami will have a grand drama for that occasion. President of India is coming to Puttaparthi, and Swami gave very clear instructions. I want only 9 boys, only 9 boys. So keeping the requirement of 9 boys in mind, the entire script and everything was written. And blessed to be one of the 9. And yeah, this is backstage just before the drama began, and Swami's looking at our characters. It was like a convocation. The program was the first scene was of a convocation, and I was made to wear specs to look much older because looking that older. So I was wearing specs. So Swami was looking at me, and then he adjusted my collar. And Swami's involvement is absolute.
It is something which nobody, if you have not seen him, it is very difficult to imagine how detailed Bhagwan can go. He was so concerned about every small little bit of makeup also.
Oh
And that
yes,
is the beauty of Swami, that minutest observation and involvement, if I may say, is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. There's a very nice this picture, 2003. This is the next convocation. You have Vice President of India, Mr. Bhairav Singh Shekhawat was chief guest, and there behind you see three people with turbans. So the central,
Yeah.
yeah, the person in the center, yeah, that person, my classmate Jai, he was playing the role of Akbar, and the primary focus in all the drama practice sessions Swami was used to have with the costumes team was, how are you going to make Akbar's turban? Now he was a Sardarji, so anyway he was wearing a turban, but this was going to be a special turban for the Mughal emperor. And believe me, for 6 practice sessions, Swami came in the college and in the Purnachandra. And every time when the costumes team will come and show Akbar's turban, Swami said, Turban baga ledu. Professor Sundareshan, who was in charge of the costumes, he tried everything possible, including putting real flowers on the turban so it is fragrant and looks really unique, innovative. Akbar turban baga ledu. Akbar turban is
Bangladesh.
final day, just the day before the actual convocation. Swami finally approved the turban. He said, this is the right turban. And I'll tell you one more thing, the sensitivity, as you said, Swami's involvement was total. He is supposed to be the chancellor presiding over the program. But he was the one right from envisioning the script, the drama, the program, all the way to the practice sessions, to the makeup, as I gave you the details, all the way sitting next to the chief guest and watching the program as if he's watching for the first time. And the expressions on his face will be like a child who is seeing the drama for the first time, absolutely innocent, as if he's seeing it for the first time. So in this particular program, I remember Swami's the chief guest was from Rajasthan, Mr. Bhairav Singh Shekhawat. He's from Rajasthan. So Swami said on the week prior to 2 weeks, 10 days prior to the program, he said, "See, the vice president is the chief guest. He's from Rajasthan. So ensure that at least 2 or 3 songs in the drama are in Hindi." And then 3 or 4 days before the program, he said, "See, vice president is from Rajasthan. You ensure that some of the students have dress which is similar to the way they wear in Rajasthan." So he got special turbans put on some of the characters' heads for the familiarity of the Rajasthani turban and the dress. The vice chancellor can feel proud of their culture. So that was the level of sensitivity that Swami had till the very last decade of his physical presence with us. This minutest details did not escape
It
his.
is such a it is such a huge learning. We say that we are inviting guests when we talk about Athithi Devo Bhava, and it is not just the food aspect or welcoming. It is every little bit detail
Correct.
of what will please him or what will connect him with the whole thing. So even the drama, imagine putting a turban so that he can feel related to that. Is amazing thought. Beautiful.
Yeah, and there is a drama
Beautiful.
in a drama. There is a drama in a drama because there is one drama going on between Swami and students for all the opportunities they have been yearning for. And there is the other drama, which is what we are going to present before the audience. So it was
Surely.
a double learning experience. This is the last drama in which I was involved. This was in 2004. And yeah, I'm on the extreme left. I was given the
This
role.
is are these primary school kids? Because they look too young to me for this higher secondary.
No, these are kids from the Deena Janodharana Patakam.
Aha, Karunalayadima drama. Okay, okay. So they have
Yes,
other students. Okay, from other school
yes,
of
yes,
Swami. Okay, okay, okay.
yes. So Swami had personally got them involved for a song at the
Yeah.
beginning of drama. So they are from the.
Yes, yes. No, I remember he loved that concept also. We used to get we got Odisha school also once involved We had
Okay.
their children in them. Yes, very nice.
Yeah.
Aha, this is lovely for you in the Vrindavan.
Yes, yes. This is Traibanda. There's a story related to this. If we have the time, I can share that as well. Uh, you since you are the host, you are also the timekeeper. You should tell me what is
You can
convenient.
go quickly. Yeah, go quickly with that. No problem. Give us a
Yeah.
brief.
Yeah, so actually, this story is about the robe. I mean, I've shared this on several platforms. Yeah, that's a robe in my hand, which Swami gifted us. So, Swami, we had presented to Swami for our batch when our batch completed their post graduation. We wanted to give something to Swami. So, we decided that we will give Swami multicolored robes because Swami had stopped wearing multicolored robes. He was wearing only orange for all festivals. So we said we'll give robes to indicate to Swami that we want him to wear multicolored robes. So when Professor Shivshankar Sai and some of our batch boys went to Purnachandra residence, Swami accepted the letters of gratitude. He said, robes I don't want. Tell the boys if they want robes, I will give them. And when the message came back, we were all very upset why Swami didn't accept our gift. Then I said, if Swami wants to give us robes, let him give. I was room C20 in the hostel, I still remember. So my classmate said, here is Swami's photograph. I mean, he said, you tell Swami tomorrow that you want robes. I said, no, no, here is Swami's photograph. I'm telling Swami, Swami, please give us robes. We'll give it to our parents to put in the altar. And then the dinner bell rang and we all went down. And next day morning, Swami, on his way to the hospital, comes into the hostel, calls the warden, Shivshankar Sai sir, says, tell all the boys to come in time for darshan. So we all went. When Swami says specifically means everybody goes to Mandir. And when we went there, there were piles of robes all across the portico. And then the robes were distributed to all of us. And then after the distribution was over, I was in the 10th row. Swami was standing on the portico and he looked at me and then he nodded his head. And I folded my hands and I smiled and I said, thank you in my heart. And then when we came back to the hostel, my classmates said, wow, you prayed in the hostel? Swami responded in the mandir. You should share this as a experience in your next opportunity by when you get to speak. By then, Swami was blessing me with a lot of opportunities to speak. So this photo is from Vrindavan in 2004. That day I managed to come just in time for bhajans and last row of students. And Swami came and all through he was looking at me. So initially, I was very happy Swami is looking at me. But then when Swami looks at you very often as a student, you get worried because you know you have done something wrong which Swami wants you to reflect on. So I started doing
Yeah.
self and
I
bhajans
want
were
to tell
over.
I want to tell the viewers that we have seen Trey Vrindavan, also old Vrindavan, new Trey Vrindavan pictures in other episodes. I guess this will be the final change of the chair because Bhagwan started with a chair, then it came a new jhula, then this was the jhula. So this is how the three sessions would be in his last few years. So thanks, Shashank, for sharing this lovely picture of Bhagwan.
Yeah, so I got in the. I mean, after that we had opportunity to go for try session, and I was in the last row, but our row got the first token. The token system, or sometimes class wise, but that day it was token system. So I landed up in the fourth row in front of the Jula, and I was extremely anxious because Swami was looking at me, and you know how we are as a student. We don't want to upset Swami for any small act. So I landed up there. Swami came, sat on this Jula. This is exactly that day's picture. He sat there and spoke to a few students. I was holding a letter because my birthday was a week prior to that. So Swami called me. So I gave the letter. He read the letter. Then he said, long story short, he said, share your experience with your friends. He said, for a change, he used the word friends. अपने friends के साथ experiences share करो. He said.
That's a
So
very rare sentence, man.
yes. So he said that, and I started speaking, and then I was reminded of the robe experience. So I finished, I mean, I shared other things. And then at the end, I shared this entire robe experience of how prayer in the hostel was fulfilled in the mandir, that Swami is listening to us. And then after the talk was over, I took Namaskar, Swami Machalai's Vibhuti blessed me. I sat down. And the first thing Swami looked at the boy sitting in front, he said, I knew this boy will talk about the robe. So even before coming down, I told Satyajit to keep all the robes ready. And when the Vrindavan teachers went up to Swami's room, they saw that even before coming down for bhajan, Swami had kept all ready for distribution. He said, Vrindavan boys have not got robes, only Prashantanilam boys have got robes. So he gave me the first robe and then distributed to the others. And everybody was thanking me that because you said Swami gave robe, because they couldn't hear what's happening in the first few rows and what Swami is saying. But how the entire thing is planned by him, and how he gives you the first row, he gives you the idea to write a letter, he calls you, you land up next to him, you tells you to speak, you speak about the robe, you think you're doing everything. But in the Gita, as Krishna said, nimitta matram bhavasavya sachi, you be an instrument and he will use you well. You try to do things yourself and you'll go wrong.
Shashank, I'm just trying to keep the time on the check.
Yes, yes,
Let
yes.
me ask you one more thing, because I believe you were also given the responsibility at one time to manage the publications of the hostel.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I want to tell the viewers that hostel has its own system of doing things. So if you can sketch us the beautiful, because Swami is life is obviously such a vast and beautiful life, and it's not possible for any person or anybody to capture it. But as a student, the effort was made from much earlier days to
Yes.
try to cover the life of Bhagwan, the message of Bhagwan. So if you can run us through a kind of quick journey of what is available today, so that devotees who have not had the privilege can understand, if they want to go and check out, they can. So if you can tell us from the student's perspective how the Bhagwan's life has been captured, from in terms of his stories, children experiences, all that. So
Yes. Yes.
over to you.
Yeah, so I won't get into the chronological details, but I'll just
Yeah, sure.
so actually the whole thing started way back in 1979 when the first batch of boys then had kind of prayed to Swami, and he permitted them to put together a set of experiences of their stay with Swami, and that's when the first book came out of students' experiences with Swami. And in 1980, this took a much bigger shape. And Swami himself, on his birthday, 55th birthday in Purnachandra, released the volume of what is called Golden Age. That was the name of that special volume. It was called Golden Age. And it is a compilation of experiences of the students of those years, especially the
Yes.
yes, all the even the Professor Lakshmi Narasimham and
Yeah.
Dr. Sudan, all of the teachers had written, all the old time students had also written their experiences.
Hmm.
And after that, every batch, Mr. Rammohan Rao had initiated this exercise that every batch a student
He
should
was
write.
an English teacher in the school who had started.
Yes.
Yes. Hmm.
So from 85 onwards, every 5 years, there used to be a compilation of students' experiences. 60th birthday, 60 experiences, 70th birthday, 70 experiences. And to be chosen for that was a great opportunity. So for 5 years, students would be encouraged to write their experiences and understanding of the system. And the top 60, the top 70, the top 75 articles would be selected. So it was a very
Selected.
nice process. And in parallel, the writing of conversations of Swami and students in the mandir started. Because everybody would not get to hear what Swami said as Swami started speaking in the portico earlier. You know how it is. I don't want to tell you how it used to be. I wasn't around then. But as the distance between Swami and students started increasing, everybody couldn't hear what Swami was saying. So there was a system started to document what Swami said on a day-to-day basis. And it used to be put up on the hostel notice board called Thus Speak Sai. And I believe Dr. Sainath had taken the initiative and he became a research scholar to put it together. And in subsequent years, Dr. Deepak Anand became the in charge of the publications division in the hostel, and he started putting together a lot of these things. And I entered in 2008. The warden, Professor Shashank Shah, gave me the opportunity, and to become the head of the publications division. And I tried to reflect what is it that Swami was looking for. I'll tell you one very nice experience. In 2008, a group of German devotees had come And yeah, so I see a comment here: is Golden Age publication available even now? I believe it is still available in the libraries. It is there in the university library. It's there in the
I'm sure
bookstore
the
library also.
books and
Yes,
publication also will have it. Yeah.
it is available in the library. It's not available for purchase.
Hmm.
So 2008, when I was yeah, so 2008 in the Portico, a group of German devotees had presented a program, and at the end of the program, when students make present a program, they say, "We love you, Swami," at the end of the program. So the and Swami would used to say in exchange, "I also love you." So the German devotees did the same thing. They shouted out aloud after the program, "We love you, Swami." So then Swami said that day, "No, no, no, don't love me. Love my message. Love my message." So the transition was very clear. He had, as we said, he was trying to empower us to learn to live without his physical presence. And a very clear focus was on his message. And in the 2000s World Youth Conference, there was a suggestion which came from the international organization that there was no literature of students and Swami. Discourses, experiences, conversations, none of these were available in the public domain. So we realized a very clear gap. And then we embarked on that journey. And by Swami's grace, in those 6 years when I was heading the Sai publications, we came out with 30 books, uh, five-part My Dear Students, which is 108 discourses of Swami. Uh, this is a blessing of my PhD thesis. But yeah, anyway.
Oh, sorry. This PhD. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This is there's an experience associated with this also. But yeah, this is a
Okay.
blessing.
We'll come back to that. So
Yeah,
let
yeah.
us
This
finish
is
this. So this is your, my dear
yeah.
students, right?
Yes, My Dear Students, Volume Two. This is Students with Sai Conversation. This was December 2010. Believe me, brother, in the 85th year, in that 10 months, we published a book a month. A book, 10 books in 10 months. We were amazed at the speed with which books were coming out. The book trust was amazed. The book trust asked us, "How are you able to come out with books at this speed?" I said, "I don't know, sir. It's just happening." And believe me, every book that we came out with, Swami released with his own hand. These are batch after batch of the Sai publication students who were a part of the Self-Reliance department who worked together to bring out those books. Every book Swami personally released, which we had.
I want to highlight that for our viewers that this is all hostel activity, and it is over and above what the student is supposed to do as a student. Go to
Yes,
college or school and do everything what is hostel routine requires, and then they take up additional responsibility. So in that tight schedule from morning 5 o'clock to night 10 o'clock, I don't know how boys really. I'm today. I can say that it is really beyond human effort that to find time and create a book a month from the hostel. It is amazing. I think you have a great leader in Dr. Shiv Shankar Sai here,
yes.
and Surya Narayan,
Mr.
wonderful human
Surnaran.
being. I
Yes, he's
think they
a
are sages. They are sages in our midst. Surya
yeah,
Narayan Garu is a wonderful man. He's
yeah.
such a humble man.
He completed class 12 and joined to serve Swami. And while working as an accounts officer in the hostel, he completed his BCom and MCom and so many accounts degrees and used to single-handedly manage accounts of all the three hostels:
All the places.
our hostel, higher secondary school, and primary school.
Yes. He joined with me, I think in 83 he joined us.
Okay.
He was an
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing man.
Right.
Amazing man.
Yes. Great. These are all teachers who inspired us phenomenally. And
And
yeah,
this is your
yes,
hmm.
these are some of the books. In the center, we have all the discourses, My Dear Students. And then we had three parts in Telugu also, Priyamaina Vidyarthulara. We came out in Telugu discourses. And Sai Vani, which is Swami's discourse excerpts on all the avatars, and Sai Vani 2 on all the prophets, all the saints, and all the acharyas. So we brought out all the literature that Swami has spoken about, the great scriptural figures whom Swami always said we should follow as ideals. On the top are three parts of the Students with Sai Conversations from 91 to 2004. In 3 parts, we've covered 1,000 pages of one-on-one conversations of Swami and students, including one entire Trai Brindavan season of the year 2000, where we've covered 40 days of Trai conversations.
And I
And
want to tell people that these are the conversations which are done on a very informal setting. Either it could be a Trey session or a Portico session or somewhere. So these are not available normally in any kind of formal literature. Am I right, Seshank?
yes, this is available in the Mandir stores,
Yeah,
and
now that's why I said this
now,
content of this.
yes, yes. And
Hmm.
phenomenal insights. It is mentioned in this conversations when in 99, in the Purna Chandra Swami said, if I want, I can stay till 96. If I want, I can leave earlier also. It is there very clearly documented. And it's so all of these are phenomenal documents of Swami's message. This is the last book we which Swami physically blessed. This picture is of 1st of March 2011. It was the eve of Mahashivratri. And this book is a collaborative endeavor of Chaitanya Jyoti and our hostel. On the extreme right is me. The extreme left is brother Aman Javeri, who was working with me in publications. He did his PhD from Swami's University. In the center is Colonel Bose, heading Chaitanya Jyoti. And we are
Chaitanya.
presenting the 2 parts of what was called Sri Satyasai Digvijayam, which was a 2 part compilation after 5 years of research on Swami's life and journeys. In fact, I must commend Kamakshi Ramachandran and Mr. Ramachandran, who were a part of Colonel Bose's team, which worked along with the hostel team to compile Swami's life on a day-to-day basis from 1926 until 2005 with Swami released, and after Swami's physical exit from 2005 to 2011, the right pun is the third volume. In about 1200 pages, every single day of Swami has been covered, from 600 plus issues of Sanatan Sarathi and all the biographies that have been published on Swami's life with date and source. And if you, and a fact file which we shared with Swami is, we calculated through what is in the public domain that Swami traveled 3 lakh kilometers in his physical lifetime, at least what is documented, to give darshan and bless devotees across the length and breadth of India. And this was the last book that Swami released, and it was a Digvijayam. It was a compilation of a victorious journey of the Avatar Purusha. And it was very symbolic because it was inaugurated by him, launched by him as the last book, symbolic of a victorious journey in his avataric lifetime on this planet.
Beautiful.
So very symbolic.
Beautiful. See, so much of literature of Bhagwan is now thanks to him that he allowed us to
Yes.
document.
Yes.
Compilation itself is amazing. So thank you for giving us this insight into the journey of the books. Uh, there is another thing which I would like quickly for you to mention is, in our time, Bhagwan would come to hostel and do things. But I
Right.
believe in the hostel, when the new hostel renovation happened in Prashanti Nilayam, the Mandir altar, the altar of the hall was renovated beautifully. And I believe a Rama statue was brought in. So if you can
Yes.
give us a story about this Ram Darbar story,
Yes.
that would be
Yes.
lovely. So if you can quickly
Yeah.
mention the story of Ram Darbar.
Yes. So this is again this outside Swami's residence. This is in October 2007. I remember it was a Mahalaya Amavasya day, very auspicious in several parts of India. The previous week, Swami had instructed the Central Trust boys to empty parts of the Prashantiniya Mandir on the first floor, where Swami used to stay, his own residence above the Bhajan Mandir. And all those things were placed in the Purna Chandra auditorium for Swami to inspect, because there's no lift to go up. I believe Swami wanted to see what all is there. So there's no lift to go up to his residence. So he got everything put up in Purna Chandra auditorium. And he came there and saw everything and then selected 2 things. One is a statue, a white statue of Swami, which used to be the centerpiece of the Bhajan Mandir in the 1960s. He advised them to send this to the Chaitanya Jyoti Museum. It is there even now, right at the entrance. And the second, he saw this Ram Darbar idols. And then he said very clearly and distinctly, Idi Pedda hostel ki pampinchandi. Send this to the big hostel. Big
Big
hostel,
hostel.
senior students hostel for the UG, PG, and PhD students. And anything that Swami does in the hostel, our training is, and Professor Shashank Sai, I should give him credit, he used to create an opportunity for students out of any activity. It could have just gone very casually. He got a team together of senior research scholars and those who were in charge of the hostel spiritual activities, and got these entire idols decorated. And we created like a temple, a mobile temple in front of Swami's residence, so that when he comes, his attention is attracted. So that's the picture you saw. We all were there with saris for Mother Sita, with akshatas, with coconuts, with the special jal, so that Swami can put all of that on the idol, so that it becomes like a idol blessing ceremony. And all of
It is
that,
like giving life to the
yes,
prana
yes,
pratishtha. It's a
prana
prana
pratishtha.
pratishtha. So
Yes, yes.
instead of
So that,
Bhagwan coming to hostel, now you got it done here. It's beautiful.
yes, yes. So these are images on that occasion, and then he also posed with the idol, and then eventually these idols were placed as the central deities in the hostel. I'd like to draw the attention of the listeners. Actually, this was the time when, very ironically, the government of India had filed a petition in the Supreme Court that Rama is a fictional figure. There is no
Oh yeah.
historical significance of Rama's life. And it was very unfortunate that in a land where Rama is venerated in every village of this country, where Rama is the very soul of the Indian family and the very essence of the message of India, the government went ahead and did something like this. And Swami wanted to convey his message. And you know, Swami's actions speak very, very loudly than his words. And he sent the idols of Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita to be installed as the central piece in his hostel, to say that this is the idol that I want every student of my institutions to emulate. I'd also like to share with the listeners that Swami would rarely send a Devi idol into the hostel. Maximum we'll have Saraswati, that also will be on as a mural in the temple. But it was the first time Swami sent the idol of Mother Sita. He sent a family idol, and he sent a message that this is the ideal of India, the ideal message of Rama. And these now adorn the center of the hostel. And one fact file, Mr. Chettiar was there when Swami was blessing the idols. And he shared with us, he said, these idols are of a very unique kind because they are hand chiseled. They belong to the 1950s. Mr. Chettiar is an expert in statues. He's got so
Yeah.
many of them as per Swami's command. He said, even the idols of Rama at the entrance of the mandir are not as special as this because those are machine chiseled, these are hand chiseled, and these were in Swami's residence for 50 years. So they have so many powerful vibrations of Swami's own physical presence. And now you boys will get to worship this. How lucky you are, how chosen you are.
See,
So for
actually, like nobody
great
knows the
opportunity.
origin of these idols. It was kept inside, so nobody really knows how old and from where it came from. They came from. So it
Yes.
is really unique. It's so unique, and it was all kept inside the house, and nobody knew when it will come out, and nobody questioned anybody. And it's so nice to see that Bhagwan brought it out, and now it is decorated, beautifully placed in hostel for
Yeah,
boys
this is,
to.
yeah, this is also the significance of the senior hostel in Swami's. This is a picture of Swami inaugurating his own room in the hostel. This was the last visit in his physical form, 2009. And Swami blessed this idol of Lord Vishnu, which he had himself sent many decades earlier. Now there's a temple around it. So he sanctified every part of the hostel. And since we're talking about the hostel, let me share this one fact file with the listeners. And brother, you may also not know. Swami's love for the senior hostel was phenomenal. He Because 70% of his time was with the senior students compared to any other activity, hospital, water projects, international organization, all India organization, lakhs of workers and crores of rupees involved. But his heart and soul, and he used to say, I'm giving 70% of my time for these boys because these boys are the future of the country. And if you have the good leaders for the future, the country has a good future. You won't believe, in March 2011, we had all gone to the college. Swami was one of his last trips on the road outside the hostel. I believe Swami told the driver to slow down his car, and he just stood in front of the hostel in the car for 5 minutes, looking at the hostel from one end to the other. For 5 minutes, Swami was just looking at the hostel from end to end. Nobody could come out because it was a college time. If you come out from the hostel in college time, you're going to be in trouble because you're supposed to be in college. So nobody came out, but students saw from the window. Swami was just looking end to end at the hostel for 5 minutes, and he left. That was the last darshan. That was the last time Swami passed in front of the hostel and looked at it lovingly. I think all the students for generations to come will get to stay in the hostel and get to worship these idols, get to live in these hallowed premises, are truly blessed because he surcharged every corner, every nook and corner of that grand institution he has surcharged. And that is his cherished home. As we used to say, hostel is a place where he
Correct. This
the
one, I
honor and
would
all
like you
live
to
for
tell
God.
quickly about this statue of Narayana, the Sheshasya.
Yeah, so this statue came during, I believe, during the 60th birthday, and it used to be in the quadrangle. It used to be in the quadrangle. It was a multicolored idol, but then because there was a lot of and a very practical thing, there was a lot of monkey problem in the quadrangle. A lot of monkeys used to come, so the idol used to get dirty, and hence it was decided that it will be put in the rear part of the hostel. And then there was a department, as you mentioned, a separate department which was called Vaikuntha Narayana Vanam department, which used to be taking care of the idol. So every morning, Abhishek and decorating it with flowers and typical Gurukula system. And then eventually, year after year, it became a full-fledged temple. Today, if you old students who go to the hostel, you get to see this. It's been done very well. And Swami surcharged this place also. This was his idol, and he blessed it profusely in his last visit. So that's the
Shashank,
story.
if you don't mind, because I would like you to share your journey of MBA more and other things. So rather than rushing it down, I was wondering if you, if Swami willing, you are available, we can do this continuation next week.
Yeah, we can do it.
So, so I
Yeah,
think because I would like to keep it in the timeline, otherwise it becomes too long for our devotees also who are watching it from
yes,
different places.
sure.
Okay. So because I think the storyline was going so beautiful, I hate to put an abrupt stop to that. But I thought that this journey needs a little bit more time to, share about the whole life of Bhagwan that way. So we will continue this journey next week again. So
Sure.
I request all the audience and viewers to please uh, thank you for joining us today, and please come and again next week. So, Shashank, before we close for this week, I think we have you have taken us through a wonderful journey of telling us how you have perceived Bhagwan and how Bhagwan has really guided, if you say, life in that beautiful manner. See, what one thing which always amazes me about I don't know what the right word is or not, but is that in every act of his, he was so human, but at the same time, it was filled with divinity. Omniscience, omnipresence was reflective. But if you look at it, he acted so humanly. Even when on the wheelchair, when you saw him, he looked very kind of an sick, sometimes very helplessly sitting down. You could, it's hard to sometimes imagine like Swami, you sitting like that. And in that, he would pretend to be not knowing, not involved. And suddenly he will, share something or do something that would give you a jolt that, oh, boss is still on, you know. So if you look at your life, because you had a, I think you were one of the last batches, if I may put it, who had the privilege of seeing Swami walk and be active, and then get into the so-called old age. How your perception changed or evolved in that journey of seeing Avatar in that way?
Yeah, so I think I was lucky. I think that advancement of the university exams by 1 year for me was a great blessing because that was the last year in which Swami was physically active. I mean, he was moving around and all of that. And it was it was an eye opener to see him do everything end to end. So I got to see everything from summer course till Kodaikanal. Swami blessed me to go to Kodaikanal that year. Swami blessed me to speak in his presence on 3, 4 occasions. Swami blessed our class for Ganesh Chaturthi. Swami blessed me for the convocation drama. Swami came in white robe for the Christmas. Swami came for the practice sessions for sports meet. Swami did Lingodbhavam. Everything that we ascribe to Swami's typical schedule for years together, decades together, I got to see in one year. So like they say, you don't need the entire ocean. A spoon will tell you the taste of the
Taste of
ocean.
ocean.
So like that for me, and maybe I was destined only to get the real experience on the physical front for that one year. But in the subsequent years, while Swami was gradually preparing us for his exit, his commitment, his involvement, his 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 emphasis on not leaving any opportunity to give us a very insightful experience for a lifetime. I'll share with you one thing, because talking about Swami sitting on chair and needing assistance. This wasn't that green card experience. I was sitting at Swami's feet, and after the thing was over, Swami Swami said, "Help me stand up." I mean, he didn't say that; he indicated. There were two of us. So we had eaten idli chutney. Our hands were dirty. In front of Swami, you don't eat with spoon, right? You eat with your hand. So our hands were dirty. So we showed Swami our hand. So, I mean, we can't say Swami, our hands are dirty. We stand our hand. Swami looked at both our hands and saw that they're dirty. And then he again said, help me up. How to touch our dirty hands to Swami's hands. And we were so hesitant. A third time again he indicated. And then we gave our hands very spontaneously. And he held our dirty hands. He got up. And then he said, the hands may be dirty. Ensure that your heart is never dirty. That is very
Oh,
important.
beautiful.
So even while needing assistance to stand up, so-called assistance to stand up, he never left an opportunity to teach us a lesson for a lifetime. We are so overly involved in the external aspects of our life that the purity of the heart is rarely a priority. And here Swami is saying, don't bother, even give your dirty hands to God. He will hold them to stand up, but ensure that your heart where he resides forever is always clean, because that's where his residence is. Like that Narada story is there, no? Mad Bhakti Yatra Gayanti Tatra. I am neither in the Vaikuntha or Kailash. I am in the heart of a devotee who sings of me all the time. So whether he was walking or as he was on his chair or his talking was limited. I still remember when Professor Vishwanath Pandit, that felicitation program, I was backstage because I had given a talk, and Swami was going from the backstage, and everybody was wanting to take Pad Namaskar. Swami was pointing at his feet, and by then his voice was not very loud. He pointed at his feet and he said, he did like this. He pointed at his heart and he said, "Andar karo, andar karo. Worship me, worship my feet in your heart, not these physical feet." So every stage, the message was the same. The transition was very gradual, very smooth. And for us, it was a painful transition. I would say all of you all are extremely lucky, because for all the decade you were there, Swami was just the same. That aggressive, that tough disciplinarian, the extremely loving, the extremely benevolent motherly master. Those things gradually reduced, but the opportunity to teach us a message at every touch point was never lost till the last discourse. And because we're talking about Swami's last year, the last discourse, because we're concluding, if anybody goes and sees, the last discourse Swami gave was on 22nd of November 2010. That indicates that his favorite role also in which he gave the discourse was as the chancellor of the university. He didn't give a discourse on the birthday. He didn't give discourse on any other day, but he gave a discourse, his last discourse, when he was the chancellor of the university. And in that, the last part of his message, if you see, his message is underlying the importance of unity of all mankind as one family. So even when he was giving the last parting message, his message was, you're all members of one family. You're all brothers and sisters. Stay united. Make the most of this opportunity of being on this planet. Work towards your own emancipation. Contribute to others' well being. That is where you can make your life truly meaningful. That is my parting message to you. So that's what I would say about
Chalo. Thank you, Shashank. I
necklace.
think we will look forward for the next week. And
Sure.
I thank all the viewers for joining us tonight. And we'll all see you next week. So this video will be available on the channel. And pray to Bhagwan for another beautiful opportunity to meet again next week. Sai Ram, and thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Sairam. Sairam, brother.
Sai Ram.
Sairam.